road that you take into the center of the village that leads to the church got the name Schnitger Straße. So you can, when you come to Cappel, you see the Schnitger organ sign, and you can drive or walk even better on Schnitger Straße into the very center of the village and the wonderful church. The church here in Cappel was rebuilt after the fire in the early 19th century. So they had a large North German church and then and a new organ at the time, but that organ and the church burned down, and they had to do something, and they built a church which is typical for the time. It's more like a gathering space, and they didn't have the money to have a new organ built at the time, so they decided to buy a used organ, an organ that Schnitger built in 1680 for the Johanneskloster church in Hamburg. So you play the great, the main organ from the upper keyboard, and then you play the organ you have behind your back, the Rückpositiv, from the first keyboard. And when we're looking at the keyboards, there is an interesting detail. When you look at the lowest part of the keyboard, it doesn't go down the way we are used to a C key. It goes down to what looks like the E. And this is what we call short octave. So when I pull a stop here, I have the principal 4 now here, and you play the scale down. Everything is as usual until you come to the F. Then you have to go up and play the upper keys, and then you find E here, D, and C on the lowest, which looks like an E key. He used some old material from an earlier organ, but he also developed his sound aesthetic with tin-rich prospect pipes. So a chamber music kind of character in the Rückpositiv, the vocal character in the main principle. And what is so wonderful is that we do have the facade pipes, the tin-rich alloy prospect pipes, the principal pipes preserved in this organ. It's a miracle that they were not taken away like in all the other organs during World War I. So it is the most well-preserved and largest 2-manual and pedal Schnitger organ that we have. The association around the Schnitger organ here in Cappel take care of the organ very well. They protect it and they make sure that it remains the way it's been all through the centuries and nothing changes. But they also promote and share their organ very generously and wonderfully. So you can, for example, come and play the organ and stay in the Organistenhaus. I've admired the organ music by Dieterich Buxtehude ever since I started listening to organ recordings and playing myself. And we have the largest collection of works, preludes, preludien, fugen, toccaten and chorale works of his large output preserved. It is so that we have very little information about the performance practice and, for example, the choice of sounds and registration in Buxtehude's music. My previous focal point in North German organ repertoire, Matthias Weckmann, in his sources we do have more information. So it's possible to sort of reconstruct registrations and use that information for the performance. But in Buxtehude's case, we do not have any information really. So it was an experiment, a research project, of an artistic kind to explore three parameters for the performance of Buxtehude's music. One was quarter-comma mean-tone temperament. The other one was a large 4-manual North German style instrument, and particularly in the Schnitger style. And the third aspect was the idea, or let's say rather the observation from studies, that Buxtehude's music was written in the Italian-German style, inspired by the new modern music, and to a larger extent that probably has been observed before. And the complete recording of Buxtehude's organ music that I did on the North German Baroque organ in Göteborg shows the results of that. It is not the way, or definitely not the only way to play Buxtehude, but it is a way to render his music from the perspective of the large North German organ concept, quarter-comma mean-tone temperament, and the idea that the music has a message. When I got the offer to play the recital in Cappel, I thought a lot about what to do and what to choose. And then I realized that the Schnitger organ here in Cappel was built at the time when Buxtehude had been organist in Lübeck for a little bit more than 10 years. So he was soon to visit Schnitger in Hamburg and to figure out what Schnitger was doing in terms of organ building there. And I thought, okay, around the time when this organ was built, what do we know about Buxtehude's organ music around that time? The largest collection of Buxtehude organ works that is preserved in a 17th century manuscript, that is the 10 Präludien und Toccaten Canzonen from Buxtehude that we find in the so-called EB 1688 manuscript. EB stands for the organist in Dresden, Emanuel Benisch. He was obviously the person who copied or collected these works, put them together, and very far from Lübeck, very far from Northern Europe and Northern Germany, he knew about Dieterich Buxtehude. He had a little funny spelling of his name, which you can see when you look at the manuscript. It doesn't read Dietrich Buxtehude or Die Buxtehude, it's Die Buxtehude. So he didn't know him personally. He was not familiar with the name that way, but he was impressed, obviously, very impressed by the music itself. Buxtehude went to see Schnitger, and during that visit, Schnitger must have shown him his instruments in the city, and there were not many. When Buxtehude came, he was busy with his big organ building project in St. Nicholas, but the organ in the Johanneskloster was there. So we know for sure that Buxtehude went with Schnitger and played this particular organ that we have here today in Cappel. And in that sense, I thought Buxtehude on this instrument, and Buxtehude with the sounds of Schnitger, that was, representing the pinnacle of organ building and music aesthetic of the time, and somehow through the perspective of Johann Sebastian Bach, who, during his visit to Hamburg in the 1720s, most likely played the same organ. That would be a nice and rather fantastic combination.